It's that time again as Iron Country brings you the Fishin Hole. Keep up to date with the latest products and learn fishing tactics from some of the best anglers across North America.
Let's give him a warm welcome this morning to the Fishin Hole 2014 National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame inductee Dale Stroschein. And this week's guest, we are going to introduce to you Larry Smith from Larry Smith Outdoors. We bring you another fantastic guest this week. It's legendary Al Linder on the Fishin Hole.
And my pleasure to be here, Jeff. Looking forward to it.
Here's your host, Hurricane Jerry.
Good morning, Hurricane Jerry with you as we talk fishing again in the State Line area. We do it every Saturday morning at 7:20 a.m. here on Iron Country 1019 and 1490. The Fishin Hole is brought to you by the Rock River Bait Box in Fort Atkinson, located on Rock River Road right next to the Rock River. They've got a wide selection of live bait and tackle, your home for St. Croix rods, Acme tackle, and your only authorized dealer for RS nets in southern Wisconsin. And don't forget the bait box, they feature old hickory utility buildings. They've got a few on site, and if there's one in particular that maybe not cater to you and might not cater to you, you can actually ask Brian for a catalog and get one custom made, or have some that are already ready to go and ready to be shipped out. Speaking of the Rock River Bait Box, I was just up there a few weeks back. A matter of fact, when the NWT was in Oconto, I stopped in there and I said, Brian, what do you got? I need some shiver minnows. And he said, I'm heading up to the bay. And so he loaded me up, and I got some there. And what a perfect opportunity right now when we're talking bay fishing or Great Lakes fishing for walleyes. We got tournament pro Tommy Kemos with us here on the Fishin Hole. And Tommy, it's been a while since we had you on the radio, and welcome back.
Yeah, it has been, but I sure appreciate you having me. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing that I love talking about more than firing those shiver minnows around. So I'm looking forward to sharing a few things.
Yeah, that's the thing, Tommy. I was, I'm fairly new at it, and just starting to, I'm catching the craze on this, and I have to admit, I was going in planning on, matter of fact, I was fishing the bay the same time the tournament was going on in Oconto, of course, but I was in the southern part of the bay, and I was working some reefs down there on the east side and west side, and pulling crawler harnesses. We were doing that, but that just wasn't getting the trick done. And so my son and I, we loaded up on some shiver minnows, and let's try it. And once we kind of figured out a cadence, we started having some success. And that's cadences. It's typically probably changes from day to day. Am I right or wrong on that, Tommy? Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's probably one of the most important parts of shiver minnow fishing is getting that cadence dialed in. And the cadence not only can change from day to day, but one of the biggest things or indicators to look for is, depending on what their forage is, that's really gonna create a starting point for me. So, like I say, we're just coming off of Oconto and the Oconto tournament, and what was happening there is we were just starting to get to that kind of tail end of the alewives being real heavy in the bay, and so those fish are tuned into feeding up and feeding on dying alewives. So in that situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to not only make really long casts, but I like to fish the bait a lot faster, and I keep it up off the bottom.
Right.
But one thing that you always have in common, no matter what the cadence is, and this is the most important part of fishing a shiver minnow properly, is that no matter what you're doing, you always want to drop that bait on slack. So when you snap that bait up or pull that bait up, you always want to drop your rod tip real quickly and let it fall down on slack. So when you go to snap it again, you're snapping into slack. It's a very difficult thing for people to pick up on because as jig fishermen, we're kind of tuned into you lift your jig up and you chase it back down on a semi-tight line. With the shiver minnow, you want to drop it on slack, and the reason for that is when you pop that bait up, it'll actually roll over on its side, and then it begins to dart off from side to side. Now, when that thing rolls up on its side, it exactly mimics what a dying alewife does, and then that is why that bait is so effective. So in that situation, I make real long casts, and I'll start reeling it right away. And I don't worry too much about letting it hit bottom, but what I will do is when it gets about halfway back to the boat, I'll let it fall all the way down to bottom and just let it sit there for a little bit, 10, 15 seconds, and then pop it back up. The other real important cadence, which is it's a much easier cadence to use, but it's more effective a little bit later on in the year once the alewives are gone and those fish go back onto the gobies or crayfish, is more of just a real short hop. And I'll cast that bait out and let it hit bottom, and you're just going to do just short, like 1 or 2 foot hops with it. And, let the fish kind of dictate to you how quickly they want those hops to be. But once again, you got to drop that bait on slack in order to really ignite it.
Right. And you, going back a little bit from what you're just talking about, what I was doing, pretty much what you're describing, I was doing. But one thing that I didn't, you were saying halfway through your retrieve, you let it hit bottom, but you said for like 10 to 15 seconds. I was maybe doing it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, if that, and pop, and then I would pop it. So that's kind of a long pause then, right? That's
yes, it is. Now, one of the things that is really important with the shiver minnow is that you have to picture that bait is moving fairly quickly. And what I'm doing is I'm able to draw fish in from a long ways with it because it is darting side to side so much. And as you're, retrieving that bait, the fish are slashing back and forth and slicing at it, trying to get it. And a lot of times, if you just kill it there and give that fish enough time to catch up to it, they'll nose down to it, and the next time you lift it, they'll absolutely crush it. So you're just giving them a little bit of an opportunity to catch up.
Okay.
Not too much of an opportunity, but a lot of times also in that clearer water, they'll only get so close to the boat and then they'll spook off of it. So I wanna try to get that fish to bite before it gets too close to the boat. Yeah,
and that's one thing too, Tommy. With using the shiver minnows, it was very rare I get one real close to the boat. It was always, after I'd let it, once I could, one thing too, what was important too with a shiver minnow, you want to use braid too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
The setup that's a great question. And the setup's are real important also. What I've kind of settled into is I use Strike King tour grade, either 8 or 10 pound high vis braid. Now, the high vis seems crazy in the clear water, but it's really important to be able to see your line and utilize that extra sense. Where that comes into play, once again, like I told you, you want to drop it on slack line. So this is where line watching really comes into play. The other thing is I want to know as soon as that bait hits bottom, because it's on a slack line, you only can see it. You can't feel it. If
right.
you're feeling it hit bottom, you're not fishing it right.
Okay.
So, but the other thing is I like to fish it on a medium, extra fast rod. I think that's real important. We just came out with a new Lose Speed Stick, which is the perfect action and the right price. That thing works really good. And the reason that you want the extra fast tip is because of the motion that you're doing. That real fast tip gets you on your snap. A lot of times when you go to snap it up, the fish have grabbed it on slack. and when you go to snap it again, you're actually setting into the fish, so you're getting a good hook set and into the meat of the rod quickly. So that's pretty important also. But so I'm using that 8 to 10 pound braid, and then I'll tie with an Albright knot. I'll tie about a wingspan of 14 to 17 pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
And then this is real important. You got to tie direct to the shiver minnow. I see a lot of guys wanting to
use snaps.
Put them on with snaps.
Yeah.
Yep. No, don't do it. You want to tie direct, and the reason for that is I believe that the bait glides a lot better. Also, with that little bit stiffer fluorocarbon, that also kind of holds the bait up a little bit longer. When it makes that death roll, I think it holds it up just a little bit longer, and I think that makes a big difference. But the other thing, in the Great Lakes, we're dealing with zebra mussels, and that extra abrasion-resistant property of the fluorocarbon comes into play also.
That's good. That's some good stuff there. I know we got probably 4 or 5 minutes here, and I know there's so much to talk about Garmin and the Panoptics and what a trendsetter that they've done. And, it's just incredible. I actually got to see it myself for the first time last year, ice fishing. My son and his buddy, they were messing around with one. And I was just totally blown away. And, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need one of these. I need one. And it's gotta play a huge role in your success, I think, and recently on the NWT. I mean, you've been up there, the top 10s, or you may be going into day one, at the end of day one, being number one, or it's just, it's incredible, and it played a huge role with your success, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The live scope last season was the first year that I had live scope rigged up on my boat. I used it ice fishing, before the season started, and it absolutely, blew my mind. And it took me a couple of tournaments last year to really learn how I was going to use the tool, because there's so much information there that it's showing you that it can be a little bit of a challenge. But it took me, like I say, into the second part of the season before I realized, this is how I need to be using it. And I can tell you, I just finished up in 7th place in that Oconto tournament. And I can tell you on day one, the fish the current stopped, it got calm out, and the fish came up off bottom. And I was having a hard time catching them. I could see them, so I was casting at the fish. And because I could watch how they were reacting to my bait, that clued me in to make a change. And that change got me 2 7-pounders with about 20 minutes to fish.
Wow!
And that was a deal maker for me. And last year in the championship, same thing. I found some fish underneath the bridge that nobody could see, but I could see when I was panning back and forth with my live scope. So it shows you so much about what those fish are doing. And when it's calm out, I can actually identify the fish. Green Bay is notorious for great big manhole cover sheep's head. Yeah, and
yeah.
Typically, when you're in the right area for walleyes, there's a lot of those sheep's head around also. And it was nice because I could, I wasn't casting at those sheep's head. I wasn't wasting any time. I was able to just keep targeting on the walleyes, and, you can't always make them bite, but at least if you know that, it gives you great confidence to keep working on them if you know that they're there and you can see them. And it's just, Garmin has given us a piece of equipment there that I still smile every time I use it.
Yeah. I'm in awe.
It blows me away.
Yeah, I am totally in awe when I see some of your videos that you have on your social media page, and it's just mind blowing how it's just a trend setting piece of equipment, and you can really tell the success that you've had recently on some of the tournaments. And we're running out of time, Tommy. I know I'd love to keep talking fishing with you, and hopefully maybe at the end of the tournament season we'll get you back on. We'll kind of recap